The wind was cold that evening, the kind that cuts through your jacket and settles deep in your bones. People hurried past, heads down, eyes fixed on their phones, pretending not to notice the old man sitting quietly on the sidewalk. His hands trembled as he held a small paper cup, nearly empty, except for a few coins that barely made a sound. And then, a girl stopped. She didn't look rich. In fact, she looked like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. But what she did next would change not only her life but the life of the man she thought was just another forgotten stranger. Before we dive into this powerful story, take a moment to support the channel Corner of Kind Choices. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments because every small action, just like in this story, can make a big difference. Emily Carter was 19 years old, living in a small apartment on the edge of a busy American city. Life hadn't been easy for her. She worked part-time at a grocery store, trying to balance bills, college classes, and the quiet loneliness that followed her wherever she went. That day had been especially hard. Her manager had cut her hours. Her rent was due in 3 days. And to make things worse, her old car had broken down that morning, forcing her to walk nearly 3 miles in the freezing cold just to get home. By the time she reached downtown, her hands were numb, and her stomach growled with hunger. She reached into her pocket and felt the small handful of coins she had left, barely enough to buy a cheap sandwich from the corner store. That's when she saw him. An old man sat on the pavement near a streetlight. His coat was worn, his shoes torn, and his face lined with years of hardship. He didn't beg loudly. He didn't chase anyone. He simply sat there, quietly, holding out a cup as people walked by like he didn't exist. Emily slowed down. She watched as dozens of people passed him, businessmen in suits, couples laughing, teenagers scrolling through their phones. Not one of them stopped. For a moment, she hesitated. She thought about her empty fridge. She thought about the long night ahead. She thought about how those coins in her pocket were all she had left. Then she looked at the man again. His eyes caught hers for just a second. There was no desperation in them, just a quiet sadness, like he had already accepted that no one would help. Emily took a deep breath. She reached into her pocket, pulled out every coin she had, and gently dropped them into his cup. The soft clinking sound echoed louder than it should have. The old man looked up, surprised. "You don't have to do that," he said softly. Emily gave a small, tired smile. "I know. But I want to." He studied her face, as if trying to understand something deeper. "Thank you," he said. She nodded and began to walk away, her hands now empty, her hunger still there, but somehow, her heart felt a little lighter. That night, Emily went to bed with nothing but a glass of water. She wrapped herself in a thin blanket and stared at the ceiling, wondering how she would make it through the next few days. But despite everything, she felt at peace. The next morning, Emily woke up to a knock on her door. Confused, she checked the time. It was barely 8 a.m. She wasn't expecting anyone. She opened the door slowly. Standing there was a man in a neat black suit, holding a small envelope. "Are you Emily Carter?" he asked politely. "Yes," she replied, unsure. "This is for you." He handed her the envelope and walked away before she could ask any questions. Emily closed the door and stared at it for a moment before opening it carefully. Inside was a letter. Her hands trembled as she read. "Dear Emily. Yesterday, you gave away something that meant everything to you, and you did it without expecting anything in return. You saw someone in need, and you chose kindness over comfort. That choice is rare. The man you helped is not who he seemed. He is someone who has spent years searching for people like you, people who still believe in compassion in a world that often forgets it. Because of your kindness, your life is about to change. Please check the second page." Emily's heart raced as she flipped the letter. Attached was a check. She gasped. It was for $50,000. Her knees nearly gave out as she sat down on the floor, staring at the number again and again, unable to believe it. Tears filled her eyes. It didn't make sense. Why would anyone do this? Later that day, Emily was invited to a small office downtown. When she arrived, her heart pounded in her chest. And then she saw him. The same old man from the street. But he looked completely different. He wore a clean suit, his posture strong, his presence confident. The sadness in his eyes was gone, replaced with something else, something warm. Emily froze. "You," she whispered. He smiled gently. "Yes. It's me." She couldn't find the words. "Why?" she finally asked. The man leaned forward. "My name is Robert Hayes," he said. "I built a company from nothing. I made millions. But along the way, I realized something. I stopped seeing people. I became like everyone else, busy, distracted, disconnected." He paused. "So I decided to test something. I wanted to know if kindness still existed. Not the kind that comes from wealth, but the kind that comes from sacrifice." Emily listened, her eyes wide. "I've sat on those streets many times," he continued. "Hundreds of people walk by every day. Some give spare change. Some don't even look. But very few give when it costs them something." He looked directly at her. "You did." Emily's eyes filled with tears again. "I didn't know who you were," she said softly. "That's the point," he replied. "Kindness doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need recognition. It only needs a heart willing to care." He slid a folder across the table. "This isn't just about the money," he said. "I want to help you finish your education. I want to support your dreams, whatever they are. Because people like you remind the world what it means to be human." Emily covered her mouth, overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say yes," he smiled. Months passed. Emily's life changed in ways she never imagined. She paid off her rent. She went back to school full-time. She even started volunteering at local shelters, inspired by the experience that changed everything. But one thing never changed: her kindness. One evening, as she walked past the same street corner, she saw another person sitting there, a young man this time, shivering in the cold. People walked by, just like before. Emily paused. She reached into her pocket. This time, she had more to give. But what mattered wasn't the amount. It was the choice. She knelt down, handed him some money, and offered a warm smile. "Take care of yourself," she said. The young man looked at her, surprised. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. Emily thought for a moment. Then she smiled. "Because someone once helped me, without needing a reason. Kindness doesn't always come back in the form of money. Sometimes, it comes back as hope. As strength. As a reminder that even in a busy, distracted world, there are still people who care." Emily's story isn't just about a girl and a millionaire. It's about a choice. A simple, powerful choice to see someone, to care, and to act, even when it's hard. Because at the end of the day, kindness isn't about how much you have. It's about how much you're willing to give. So the next time you see someone in need, remember this story. You might not change the whole world. But for one person, you could change everything. And maybe, just maybe, that's more than enough.